Hey guys, how's it going? Let me know if you guys could hear me. We're going to have an awesome stream today. I'm super excited. I'm going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about resumes, talking about what you should do if you're getting ready to get a job, starting to go into interviews. So jump in the chat, say hello. Would love to hear from you guys. It would be super awesome. But I'm glad to have all of you guys here. So we're going to wait a few minutes before starting out just to test everything, make sure that the mic is working, make sure that you guys could hear me. Let me know in the comments so I know. But today's topic is going to be awesome. We're going to talk about how to write a resume to get a web dev job. I realized I didn't put that in the title of this stream, which was my mistake because this is much more interesting than getting a web development job in 2021. But that's what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be amazing. So let me know if you could hear me, if the music is not too loud, if it's working well, and we'll go from there. And again, this is Coffee Code and Chat with me and you guys. That's the most important part. And so, as always, I take my first nice sip of coffee. So I hope you guys doing good. I hope you guys having a great weekend. I hope you guys working hard. In today's video, I want to talk about this process of getting hired and some of the basic things you need to have and when you should do certain things versus others. Now, I used to talk about the fact that you shouldn't learn algorithm and data structures. And when I say that, I say it in a very specific context, and that is if you don't know how to code yet, you don't have a portfolio with 3 to 5 projects that you built, because at the end of the day, people want you to produce. They want to see you be able to do the work. So if you don't have, portfolio projects where you build some stuff, there's no reason for you to learn algorithms and data structures at this point, because you're not going to be able to get a job regardless, because your portfolio is just not strong enough. But as you're getting closer to interviewing and you're starting to go through the interview process, there's going to be some companies that are going to ask you if you are, they're going to ask you whiteboarding questions. That's the fact. And I heard someone say, push back on that, say something like, is this something that you guys do on a day-to-day basis, and like one of my friends who does the interviewing part, he's like, don't push back on anything, because if somebody told him that, he would just end the interview right there. So the truth is that algorithms and those type of questions, they're important, and they do get asked in certain positions. And in certain positions, they'll give you more practical exam where you just build something. But let's take a look at the comments. Say hello. Thanks, Adrian. Nice haircut. I cut it myself, and I put enough gel to hide the mistakes. But if I turn my head too much one way, you'll be like, hey, you missed the spot, what have you. But great to have you, Adrian. Tech Rally, the legend is life. I don't know about that, Tech Rally. You're kicking my butt on this whole YouTube sphere. You're killing it. You're getting out there. More subscribers than me. But hey, you have a good channel, so I don't blame you getting more subscribers and more views. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to kick it up a notch and try to chase you down. Yeah, coffee, it's like my blood. Like, I need to have coffee in my blood. I'm sure there's going to be science studies. They'll come out and say how coffee is bad. But I made, some scientific studies, like it cures dementia and it prevents Alzheimer's. I don't know if it's true, but that's why I drink coffee. Hey, Logic Cindy, great to have you here. Welcome. This time is comfortable, 8 p.m. Yeah, right before bedtime. So, guys, in today's video, while you guys smashing the like button and jumping in, just let me know if the audio works. But I do want to talk about a bunch of things about interviewing, getting ready, and, regardless of where you live, maybe certain things won't apply. But the truth is, when you look for a job to get hired, it's not an easy thing to do. It is a lot of pressure, preparing for interviews and doing things. And in today's video, I wanted to start with by talking about having a good resume and making sure that you write the best one that you can. Now, my first resume, I'll show you by comparison, sucked. Even though nothing else changed about my ability to do the work, the only difference is resume. And my second version, it's not, I don't think, perfect, but it's way better than what it was. And I definitely want to get into it and talk about that to help you guys out and go from there. Tech Rally, you'll pass me again in no time. I don't know. You got a pretty good lead going. And hope you're doing good, Tech Rally. Always great to see you when you're on the live streams. I'd love to be on your live stream one day when we have time to do it together. It'll be amazing. I'll try to behave, not to be crazy. But yeah, so I want to talk about resumes. I want to talk about getting a job. I want to talk about all these different things. And more importantly, I want to talk about questions that you guys have. So if you guys have questions, whatever it is, let me know in the comments. I'd love to jump into that. So let's start first. Okay, you know how to code. You build some portfolios, right? And you need to start getting ready for interviews. And I'm just going to be blunt with you because this has been my experience. If your resume sucks, regardless your LinkedIn, regardless your portfolio, if your resume sucks, the truth is no one's going to see it. And if it's not written a certain way, no recruiter or no automatic software is going to pick it up. And that was the mistake I had. The way my resume was written, it's like written like it was made in the 1990s or something. But it wasn't working. I was not getting any feedback. I was not getting any calls. And worst of all, when people were recommending me to recruiters, when they saw my resume, they literally would ghost me. I was like, what is this, like high school? Like me trying to date again? It was ridiculous. Like at least instead of ghosting me, let me know why so I could fix it. But some recruiters will do that, and that happens. So that's what we're going to kind of start with today. Let's look at the comments for a little bit. Yeah, Tech Rally, always awesome. Yeah, I think we'll have a nice live stream. So let me jump to my computer here. And again, if you can't hear me, can't see me, I'm going to show you the terrible resume that I had. But it was good enough to at least get one person to believe in me to let me get a job. So let me jump here to my screen share here. By the way, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, it's very important to have a LinkedIn profile if it's available in your area and your country. And now you want to make sure that everything in your LinkedIn profile, I'm in the process of fixing things, anything in your LinkedIn profile matches your resume. And so this is my LinkedIn profile. This is the graphic I chose to do. I don't know if it's helpful or not helpful, but I kind of made the little icons there to kind of like, hey, here's the tech that I use. Maybe it makes sense. But more importantly, I want to show you my resume while I break my mic here. And let's see here. So I'm going to show you the first version of my resume. So this was my first resume. And I just want you to see, I am moving stuff around. If you hear noises, that's my mic falling apart. I got to get a new mic pop filter. This one is just garbage. But anyway, so here's my resume. Like to a normal eye, it looks kind of okay, right? It has stuff on it. It has, my objective to obtain a position. And let me see if I can make it bigger for you guys. Okay, that breaks it in Google Docs. It's to obtain a position as a software engineer in a professional setting, blah, 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 blah. Normal stuff, shows the tech that I use. And then the description part, this is where I made the biggest mistake. I didn't really do it the way people expect to see it, and nobody, like, this is already hard to read, and I'll show you in a second why. But the big reason, there's no bullet points. But responsible for developing front-end UI and logic for medical patient portal, web application based on Versa Suite, blah, blah, and Windows. It doesn't matter what I write here, because looking at this right now, this looks like a resume from 1990s, very amateurish, if you ask me, and it's not as good as my newer version. So let's jump in to the new version. So here it is. Here's my newer version of my resume, and like, hit the like button if you could see the difference, or let me know in the comments. It's like, this definitely looks better. This is clearly much better looking resume. And more importantly, outside of it being easily navigatable for people to scan quickly, because what recruiters are going to do, they're going to quickly scan through it, and they just want to see if you have certain things that they're looking for. They're not going to spend an hour trying to figure out, like, this is not an easily scannable resume. You can't scan it and make sense of it in like 10 seconds. Where this is a much better like improvement. And I use the template for this, and there's plenty of templates allowed. I actually bought like a package of a bunch of templates. I'll make a video about it next time to kind of share what I did, because I think they're really awesome. I just don't want to do it in this video because that's not the point. The point is having a resume that looks good and professional. So let's take a look here. And so we'll come back to all this other stuff, but let's start the most important part. You need to write a resume in this, oops, I'm moving stuff, breaking stuff, resume in this bullet point format, because people want to scan through stuff and see what you're doing or what you did or what you accomplished. So this makes more sense than my other resume. And if you look by comparison again, this right here, if we read what I've done, it's not as good as this, because this is just bullet point after bullet point of what I accomplished. So my current role, I work as a software developer engineer for a company called VersaSuite, and then I talk about the things that I actually did. I wrote maintainable, reusable code using latest ES6, JavaScript, and React features. And notice how I'm using those keywords that automatic keyword readers would pick up. In my other resume, I did not do that enough. Next bullet point, implemented React router for navigation and fetching dynamic patient data based on your parameters for hospital HR. And next step, utilize local storage to persist React application state and rehydrate context API on site reload. So these are concrete things that I did, and they kind of showcase your experience. So if your resume does not follow this, and maybe yours does, but mine didn't, and that's why my resume sucked for the longest time. If your resume does not follow this standard, it's very, very, very difficult for anybody to make sense of it. And that's basically what I repeated for all the other things. Now, FYI, someone might say for me, well, I don't have any job experience right now. I'm not sure, like, how would I don't have job experience to put on my resume. So I have another example here, and this would be for someone if you're just starting out, don't have work experience. And even if I didn't have, like, this could be your regular work experience, right? But you would do the same bullet point approach instead of like here where I have my roles. Prior to this, I would have done, if I didn't have a job, I didn't have job experience, I would have done this format where instead of job experience, it would be projects that I built, and then you write the project that you worked on, the dates that you worked on, and then you talk about it in that bullet form. What I did, I used Redux to maintain global state in my React application. I used React routers to navigate blah, blah, blah. I connected to this API, and you do it. And so if you don't have job experience, do the same thing, with your project experience. So instead of here, I would have put projects, and I would do the same thing. Project that I built, and bullet point by stuff that people want to know that you could do. And so I put, obviously, that's the most important thing, is getting those bullet points going, putting the things in order. Yeah, that's... You're talking about my mic? That's, yeah, exactly. It's a drum. No, it's a mic. Tech Rally, thanks. I can't tell you how long it took me to figure this out. And I talked to Hamza, has a great YouTube channel. I got some advice from you. Like, it's a lot of people that I had to talk to actually get to this idea of writing a proper resume, a lot of research that went into it. And I just want to share with you, like, the most important thing is doing it in this bullet point format. And so here, I have my technical skills, and I did it from my strongest stuff that I'm very proficient with to stuff that I'm familiar with. So C#, ASP.NET, SQL, I'm familiar with enough to be able to work with it, but not in a sense that if you ask me to do anything from scratch, it would be difficult. I'm pretty much familiar with how this works when applied to a React application. But most of my skill is with React routers, Redux, style components, CSS module, REST API, and GraphQL. And so I kind of put in this descending order. I also talked about some of the CSS frameworks that I'm comfortable with, like Bootstrap, Material UI. And then I talked about my non-technical skills, talked about my strong verbal communication, public speaking, team-oriented, accountable, all that stuff. And more importantly, before I had all this other experience priorhand, and the most important part, if you have something that you don't want to show on your resume, you should show it on your resume, because having a gap of work on your resume is terrible. So my resume starts from very beginning, from 2006, and everything is accountable for. So it might not be completely technical related to the job, but what people see is that at least I'm had good working history. So if you have good working history, definitely don't be shy about it. And, I had roles where I was a marketing manager at this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. I managed social media marketing campaigns, maintained company WordPress website, content updates, tried to make it relatable, created in-person sales demo presentation that increased conversion rate by 20%, stuff like that. So talk about skills that show that you accomplish stuff, even though it might not be relatable. Like, for instance, for almost 9 years, I ran and operated a martial arts school, and not relatable in any way, but it showcases that at least I'm worked somewhere for a long time, and consistency of work, whatever you want to call it. Also, I talk about community things that I do. I have a Slack channel. Now it's moving to Discord slowly. I lead an online web development coaching group on Slack where I help students get started with JavaScript and React. I operate a YouTube channel that is focused on helping others change careers into web development. So I'm trying to position myself that this is the field that I belong in. Not only do I do stuff when I work, but I do stuff on personal time. And that's very important. Is in order to get a job, you need to be able to actually do the work and study, and you need to spend the time developing these skills. So don't be shy, guys, in the comments. Let me know any questions, any suggestions, anything you guys want to talk about, because this is for you guys. And for those of you who just jumping in, we just talked about how I had this resume that basically was getting rejected 100% of the time, even though the information is the same, my experience is the same. The difference is this is more presentable. It's more defined of what I accomplished based on bullet points in my career and opportunity, and it's way better written. And so I'm going to have this resume to present to recruiters, anybody looking for it. With that, also, my LinkedIn, which I showed earlier, I have to redo, and a couple of different things change. But you got to make sure that this part of your resume on LinkedIn is also matching your regular resume. And so notice how I have this consistency between this, and I'm working on a portfolio site. Now, those of you who are jumping in, I talked about, let me kind of face you guys a little bit. Those of you who are jumping in, I talked a little bit about when you build your first portfolio, what you want to do is you want to use a template because you want to get something that you could easily put up there, so you could start actually putting into the world this professional image of yourself, that you're a developer, you're looking for a job, and as you build portfolio projects, you could add them to that. One of the reasons why I talk about using a template, and I forgot to load it here, and it'll be a pain to load it. I'm working on a personal portfolio blog / some other things that my app's going to do, but it's just taking me a time, and it's going to take me a while before I finish it and before I test it well enough that there's no bugs. And the benefit of having a theme, when you just set up a basic theme for your portfolio, there's no bugs, there's nothing you have to worry about. It's just there. It's very presentable. So when you're starting out, using a theme for your portfolio site, like Bootstrap themes, and there's a thing called Made with Bootstrap or Bootstrap Made website. They have a lot of free themes, and I'm actually using one as an example. I'll show you here. It's not done, it's not complete, and I'm using their template because it's free and it's accessible to anybody, and anybody could do it. And so basically you have no excuse. So screen share here. So here's a portfolio site. It looks professional, right? You're not gonna look at this, stuff is not gonna be broken. I have my LinkedIn, my GitHub, which I'll talk about. I have my YouTube channel. Not sure if I should share that there. But look, this looks professional. You have the About section, nice and clean. The branding matches my LinkedIn. So if someone went from my LinkedIn to my website, they're not going to be confused, or vice versa. If someone found my website and went to LinkedIn, they're going to be like, oh, it's the same person. What this matches there. So you want to have this consistency in getting this done. And next, I have my skills, what I do, HTML, JavaScript, React, Redux, GraphQL, Web APIs with C#. And then I started adding my resume here. And again, this is off the template, so I didn't finish putting all my professional experience. But not only are people going to have a copy of my resume like this, and I'm actually going to link to this from my website, but they're also going to see my resume of these of all the important stuff right from the beginning. Now, I don't have a portfolio section yet because I'm in the process of redoing my portfolio, and so I could either completely exclude it or put coming soon portfolio section. I chose to exclude it so people don't see coming soon. I'd much rather not put it, but I'm working on that section. Once I get my section, it's going to go in here. It's going to be my portfolio. And the thing for your portfolio, which we'll talk in a little bit, it has to be good stuff that works and doesn't break. Anything broken, people are going to get really turned off by your resume. And then I have a contact section where people are able to leave their information, able to send me message, and I could get back to them. So notice, just by putting up a theme, I don't have to completely be awesome at anything yet. At least I have a home online. which shows that this is what I'm trying to do, become a developer. I have a LinkedIn set up, and I have a resume that is way better than the resume that was not getting me any jobs. So having that consistency and also having a GitHub, and I'm only showing you my GitHub just to show you that it's all consistent across the board. And that's what you want to aim for. You want to brand yourself as a software engineer developer, and it has to show in all the mediums, from your LinkedIn, from your website, to your GitHub. And so this is my GitHub. Yeah, it's sporadic. It doesn't do much. And that's kind of like the bare minimum of building a presence to be able to start going for recruiters. So let me look at the comments first before I get too far. And again, don't be shy, guys. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys, working, any questions you guys have. Because remember, like, this channel is not just, for me to blindly talk to you guys. This channel is about me and you guys sharing our experience and helping you guys get the job, get to where you need to go, and do it in a way where we're being honest with each other and not trying to sugarcoat anything by saying, like, hey, anybody could do it. It's easy. You just have to, just count the days and it's going to happen. But let's see here. Say hello in the comments. Hi there. I love to watch resumes from junior perspective. Yeah, so by the way, I'm a junior developer too. And I think, like, having a good resume is super important. Hey, DJ Norris, what's up? I don't know if you saw my old resume and my new resume here. Let me jump into the screen share and you could take a look at it and see the difference. I'm very proud of it. But this was the biggest pain mistake, biggest point here, is that this resume was getting people ghosting me. Look at the presentation. By the way, the information here is the same. I just reformatted it in my new resume, which is much easier to read. It's keywords. I don't want to say keyword stuff. It's all the stuff that I do, but the automatic computers and machines will be able to check it out, be able to pick it up, be able to see. So my new resume that I just finished, because I have to start applying for other jobs, because I got to move to a different company and stuff like that. So I needed to get my butt in gear and do it. And I think this is going to be much better. I'll definitely let you know how it goes. But with that being said, guys, just keep asking questions, because I don't want to just talk about one-way conversation about what I'm doing. Don't be shy. There's no, I'm not there. This is judgment-free zone. I don't judge anybody, because I've made a lot of mistakes. I still am trying to make it to where I'm going. Oh, I'm hitting comments that I already hit, but hello again. So here we go. I mean, with no experience in this field. Yeah, guys, like, if you guys don't have experience, and I did show it, that idea of set up your resume. You don't have experience. Instead of talking about your jobs, talk about your projects. Just say project, when you did the project, and talk about the things that you built in that project. I use Redux to manage state. I connected to Fetch API. I connected to an API using Fetch or Axios, like whatever it is. But talk about the things that you do. Now, once your resume is at hand, when you guys have all the stuff kind of ready, we could go there. So, hey, thanks, TJ Norris. The new one looks great. Yeah, thank you so much. It took me forever to figure out how to do them. And so, I'm glad that I'm finally have a resume that matches what I'm actually able to do to help me get hired. Because honestly, like I said before, a lot of recruiters that were contacted me, once they saw my resume, they would ghost me like I was a bad girlfriend, which was really frustrating. But I try not to be judgmental or personal. It wasn't me as a person. It was the fact that my resume sucked. And having a good resume is super important in terms of not even the stuff that was in it. The information is the same, but having it be presentable enough, make it easy for recruiters to be able to scan it 3 to 7 seconds and make a decision if they want to talk to you more. Are you doing portfolio review soon? So I will do some more portfolios for sure. That's a good question. Where I would say to start, if you're not sure where to start, is start building a basic HTML and CSS and JavaScript website. And I'll talk about that more. But in terms of portfolio reviews, You guys check out my live stream that I did with Hamza. It's somewhere on my YouTube channel, because we went over and talked about the projects that I built up to this point, and he gave me some feedback in terms of what I should do, or do I need to do more? Do I have to step back? That's a great video to watch. In terms of building projects, there's many approaches. This is the one that I'll tell you. Number one, if you're building let me back up. If you don't have any projects in your portfolio, you have to start with one. And it seems like an obvious kind of thing to say, but the idea is a lot of people, they procrastinate by trying to decide what to do next, and they never get to it in the first place. So start with one, and I recommend, so I'll tell you a story before I tell you what I recommend for the first project. So I started a new role, and the company that I work at now, they're not so much focused on UI design and presentation, because they're too busy, because it's a small team, they're too busy trying to get the functionality to work. So if the website doesn't look exactly like it is on the mockup, people are not going to give you like hell for it. They're not going to tell anything for you. But this new company that I work at, I'm doing a contract role right now part-time. When I did that first initial layout and I did the pull request, my manager, he's like, hey, Paul, you did a great job, but let me kind of go over this. And he nitpicked everything on my UI, even though the functionality was there. The UI, he's like, this is the mockup, noise the padding here. You need to be a little bit more. So the idea is, as a front-end developer, you need to have the skill in HTML and CSS to take a Photoshop mockup and recreate it pixel perfect. Yes, maybe one pixel will be off, but that's your goal. You have to think that way. Otherwise, you're not going to do what they want. Like if you get a mock-up, your manager does not want to see you kind of made it look alike. No, they want to see exactly what is on the mock-up. They want to see it in real life in your code. So the best type of projects that you should start with as a beginner, and everybody has to do it, I'm even doing it for our Slack channel, is building a basic HTML and CSS website. So I'll quickly kind of go through that before I answer some more questions, because I see some good questions here. Let me show you here. Share the screen. Did I close it? But anyway, I'll use this as an example. So find a random website. This could be it. And then see if you could recreate this exact website, not by, buying the theme and copying and calling your own, but imagine this is a Photoshop mockup, and see if you could recreate this design pixel perfect, or try to it, so it looks exactly like this. So if you have this side and the other side by side, people can't really tell, maybe unless they're like super nitpicky, that you made this. So this is what we did for our community project. This is a theme that exists, right? What I did is I found this theme on ThemeForest, and I looked at it, and I took a bunch of screenshots, and I practiced recreating this from a mock-up. Like, that's exactly what a designer would give you, and this is what we did. So you should be able to recreate designs you see online. They don't have to have super amazing animation, but the truth is you need to be able to recreate. If someone looks at, like, let's see if we could find this design in ThemeForest here. Let me go ThemeForest here. I can't type. You guys see the truth? How is this guy a programmer? He can't type under pressure. No, I can't, and I'm not a typer, but I'm going to see you. So I think that one was called Mac Portfolio. Yeah, here it is. No, that's not it. Is it? I don't know. Let me back up here. I think, yeah. So I found this one and ThemeForest. I go for ThemeForest for ideas. Why do I go for ThemeForest? Because this is where people make stuff. And most of it made with Bootstrap, but we could talk about that later, why you should be familiar with Bootstrap, but because it lets you make things quickly. But besides the point, I like to go here because I know the designs that are here, people are buying, people are selling. So I find like really good rated designs, and I basically study them. I go in and I study, I see what they're doing. And so let me kind of find the one that we're building. So here is this design. So what I did is I found this design and I looked at it. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, it has some animations, but they're cheating. They're using Bootstrap or some JavaScript library, which you could do. But that's not the point. JavaScript is not the point of your first initial project. First initial project to start with, find a website that you like and recreate it. Boom, this is my version. I'm kind of zoomed in a little bit more. I could zoom out, but recreate it with HTML and CSS. This is very important for you guys to have as a skill. If you guys can't do that, chances of getting hired are very slim. And I hate to kind of say that to you because it was the case for me. You need to be able to find a mock-up that you found of a website, right? Or you could even better find a Photoshop file instead and work off a Photoshop file or Figma file and see if you could recreate the front end, the HTML and CSS to make the website look what it is. That's a super important skill to have, and I can't stress that enough. Now, that should be your first project, is to recreate HTML and CSS. So you're probably wondering, what should be my second project? You know, what should I do to make it better? You guys give me a moment. I'm going to quickly jump off, close the window. People doing lawn service here. So for the second part of the project, right, you create something with HTML and CSS. That's when you start adding functionality in JavaScript. And instead of creating something brand new, just work on your existing project. Add JavaScript and HTML to this HTML and CSS project. And one good place to start is when you're working is doing some basic form validation. But you could also do on click, like if someone clicks a button, like for instance, let me share my screen again. In my site, if I scroll all the way to the bottom and click this button here, it'll take me back to the top. That's using JavaScript, you know. And so and I'm in the second phase of this community project. And if you want to learn more about it, you could go to Discord, check it out. If you want to get to Discord, go to codingafter30.com. And there's going to be an area here you could click to sign in. So if you want to work on community projects, you could go to our website. And there's a link here. You'll see that you could click, join our community, access our Discord, plus additional material. You guys could click the link. It'll take you here, fill it in, and I'll send you the invite to the Discord. The link used to be broken. I fixed it. It should not have any problem. But the whole point of I used to do this on Slack. I moved everything to Discord just to make it easier. But the point for us is to have a community where we're working through building portfolio projects that you're not building off a tutorial. You're creating it yourself, and you're able to put it in your portfolio and not feel like you did it off following a tutorial. Anybody could follow a tutorial and then put that tutorial, but your goal is to be able to build something from scratch. So the way I run this group is I don't show you how to build things. I give you help and to troubleshoot the trouble you're having, but you're on your own building the portfolio. And the good thing about that and the benefit of that is that no one could take that away from you. Like, you didn't follow a tutorial, you struggled through the problem, you build it yourself, and now you have your own portfolio that you could put in your portfolio, or I guess a project to put in a portfolio that you built experience building. A good place to start with some JavaScript, by the way. Here I have a form. So doing basic like form validation. For instance, I'll give you an example. If I click this field and I try to like navigate, try to type something that's invalid, like I used regex to check the form here to be like, I don't want anybody to give me any numbers or weird characters. So if I start typing a name like Paul 123, it's going to complain. It's going to say, no, that's not the values that I want to see. For your first, for your name, it should be just alphabetic letters. Don't even think about putting weird characters. So that's a good example of using JavaScript in your website to do basic form validation. If I try to submit and the forms are empty, you got to fill out all the other forms, and all of them have different validations. For instance, the email, I'm using JavaScript to validate a proper email. Like, this is not a proper email. We at least have to have @email.com for it to validate. You know what I mean? Also, another great idea in JavaScript to do is like, if someone refreshes this form, am I going to lose the information that I already entered? So if I hit refresh, notice how the fields that, and I have to style it better so the text is white, but not, but whatever. You could see the fields that I already completed right? They're saved, and I just have to fill out the missing fields. So that's one example of adding JavaScript behavior to a HTML and CSS website. And form validation is huge because you're going to be doing it a lot. Let me reset this. But you could also add like a model. I don't have it here yet. I didn't get to this part, but if I click on this image, a model opens up and shows a bigger image or the description. Maybe you could put a slider here in this section, but there's lots of different things you could do. But the point is, after your HTML and CSS project, your second step is add some JavaScript to it. I'll talk about what the third thing should be, but let's get back to the comments. Let's look at here. Fahad Shaikh, hey, welcome. How do I find contract-based web dev jobs as a beginner rather than Upwork? So it's a very tricky thing to do. So for me, like the contract job that I got, it took me forever to find. And a bunch of it is because I built a relationship with somebody a long time ago, and they just happened to remember me in 2021, and they're like, hey, do you want to do this thing? So like sometimes there's a lot of element of luck. So for to answer your questions, as a beginner, going at Upwork, if you never done anything before and literally doing stuff like maybe 1 or 2 projects or 3 projects just to get experience, is a great place to start. Even though I hate Upwork, I would never use it ever. But if you're just starting out, you're complete new, because you could work with real clients. You could practice what it's like working with other people, how to interact with them with not caring about what will happen, because they're paying you like $3 an hour, $5 an hour. It's such like there's a video some developer made who's super experienced. He's more experienced than I am. When he tried to bid a job for $20 an hour, nobody would hire him. So he had to drop the price range to $10 an hour. And I get it. If you live in another country where $10 an hour is more than what you make in a week, then Upwork is perfect for you, because you're going to find more clients that will pay you, where living in US, working for $10 an hour, it's like impossible. But where like working, like if I lived in Thailand, I would work on Upwork for $10-15 an hour. You know what I mean? Because cost of living is so low. In some countries is even lower. So it does make sense. But so you go to Upwork, find a bunch of clients. So you could at least build 1 to 3 projects through a client just to get the nerves out, get the kind of like never have done it before, kind of get that experience and see what it's like. But once you do that, forget Upwork. It's not worth your time unless you live in a country where when you underbid someone and you make $5 an hour, you're still making more than majority of people in your country. Then I totally get it. But if you can't do that, the next best step is to basically start looking for clients yourself in your area, and start simple. What you want to do is, I'll give you an example, is let's say I want to make websites with WordPress for dentists or something like that. Let's just pick dentists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of all the dentists in my area, whatever that business is for you. Don't try to make everybody, and by the way, I'd find like some dentist themed websites, and I would buy a theme just so I don't even have to make that from scratch. But because when you want to find contract work yourself, is you're basically trying to find a client that will pay you money. And it's hard to do when you're a beginner unless you offer some value first. So here's what I would do. I would find all the dentists in your area, and I would check out every dentist website and see if their websites are good. And if they're not, think of things that you could add to that website to make it better. That's step 1. Step 2, when you find that website, go through it and find 3 things that you could change that are going to make it better. And make a little report. Make a little video, which you record your screen sharing yourself, like, hey, this thing here, this is why this is not good. If you do A, B, and C, you're going to get more clients, blah, 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 blah. And then make this video report. And then step 3, after you put in that value up front, all that work up front, and it doesn't guarantee anything, by the way, but it does guarantee that at least you might have a chance for someone to take you seriously. Call that dental office and say, hey, my name is Paul, and I just saw your website. I did a free kind of overview of your website, and here's what I found. Here's some of the things that you have that are not up to standards. So here's a report that I did for you to have for free of things that you could improve. And if you like, and this is something that you're interested in, I could do that work for you. And then you just give it to them, right? And maybe they'll say no, go like we really don't care. But if you make a strong enough case that the improvements that you're adding to their website are going to be a huge help, and you already gave them this audit of their website, they're more likely to hire you and get you jobs. So out of 100 like websites that or people that you connect, at least like, 5 to 10 will say yes or something like that. I'll be pretty good at 5 to 10 say yes. But the point is that's kind of what you have to do. And even better, if you find a dentist who does not have a website, make a website, buy a theme, insert their information, and then send them a link. Be like, hey, I went ahead and mocked up this website for your business. It is true that people that have a website get whatever % more clients to their business. Like, do the research, find what it is. But that's how you provide value first. Don't just ask people for stuff. Give them something first of value for them to be like, man, we need this guy. Like, I didn't know my website sucked, or I didn't know you need a website. But that's kind of what I do. There's more details to it, but this is kind of what I'm going to give as a basic general idea and go from there. Let's see here. Welcome. I'm really comfortable with HTML and CSS, but I don't know what projects to create with JavaScript. Any idea to go with it, or just include HTML CSS project to my portfolio? So hey, great question. And just like I was saying before, and I'll say it like again, is create HTML CSS project first, and then part of HTML and CSS is adding JavaScript functionality. So like pop-ups, other things like that, that websites have that use JavaScript, and add that to your website. And if you're not familiar with JavaScript, that's a great place to start. Is do some JavaScript practicing. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and other places, and basically add JavaScript functionality to your website, like a non-click. When someone clicks a button, something opens up, like the modal menu. You have the small button that you click, it opens and closes. Different effects like that, and just add that to your project, and then you could put that in your portfolio afterwards to kind of showcase not only you're familiar with HTML and CSS, but you're familiar with JavaScript. And that's where all the basic web developers start, is being able to make basic static websites using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So in turn, that's something you want to be able to do and put in your portfolio. I hope that kind of helps, and we could talk more about it as well. And then after you're able to do that, the next step will be is creating some sort of website where the content generated is dynamically from a website. Like I could show you an example here. And guys, don't be shy. Keep asking questions. I love to hear from you guys. Let's do the rest of the questions before we get too far. How far do I need to know as a junior React dev? How much do I need to know? So that's a great question. Actually, let me get back on track and hit up those questions in the description here, and we'll get to them. But so I talked about resumes. I talked about having a LinkedIn. Let's do a quick review here. So I talked about not having a bad resume like this one, but making sure you rewrite your resume to where it looks nice. If you don't have any work experience, you use this type of pattern where instead of your work experience, you write about the projects that you build and you put bullet points, what you implemented in that project. So with that being said, let's come back to here. You want to have a good LinkedIn place, which is consistent with your stuff. If you have a website, you want your website portfolio site to match your LinkedIn. You want to have your GitHub and try to commit code, so when people see this, they see that you're not sitting around. By the way, one of the plugins that I like is kind of cool. It's called Waka Time. And I always talk about you shouldn't be focused too much on watching YouTube videos and Netflix. I'm not saying that you do any of this stuff, but and I appreciate that you guys watching my videos, but you do have to track your time that you spend literally coding. So in the past 7 days, I spent 23 hours and 26 minutes of coding outside of my work. This is on my home computer. This is not my work computer. So this only records the stuff that I work at in terms of my personal projects. And here it shows us what technologies I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of React, so it says JSX. So you really have to make sure that you're spending a lot of time actually coding, doing the work. Now, when it comes to knowing what you need to know for React, and I will talk about it more, but I just want to kind of use this as a resource for you guys to do, I literally go and type junior React dev job requirements, and then I see what comes up. You know what I mean? Let's see here. Let's okay, junior React dev jobs description. So let's see here. And so you start there, right? You start with at least knowing what people are actually hiring for. I could tell you what I feel like, but look at the stuff that people are hiring. So if you're looking for skilled React.js developers to join our front-end developer role, blah, 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 blah. And then they talk about responsibilities, meeting with development's team to discuss user interviews, reviewing application, okay? And then they talk about requirements. Now, forget the degree. Like, that doesn't matter. This is actually a terrible description, but in-depth knowledge of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. And that is true. You need to know JavaScript. And when they say in-depths, they're not telling you to be a master of JavaScript. Understand the basic syntax and understand all of the JavaScript that's required for prerequisites to be able to work with React. And there's another great article that I'll kind of talk about in a second. You know, knowing React tools, including React.js, Webpack, and that's not so much important. This is a terrible one. Let's come back to another one. But basically, that's what I do, is I go through and seek, just do the research and see what's expected. And then find out what you need. This is also a terrible article. Anyway, it backfired because I should have saved those articles before, but understand the description. So let me just tell you what you need to be able to do as a junior React developer, and it comes back to this idea of knowing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So this is step one, and this is how my projects work. So number one, you should be able to build a basic HTML and CSS like project, which basically showcases that you know how to go from a mock-up to a thing. Second step, you need to take that HTML and CSS that you wrote and you need to convert it to a React application. So you need to know the basics of starting a React application. You need to know the basics of how to convert HTML to JSX. And you need to know how to create basic components. And that's just the beginning. Second, you need to know how to pass props and how to store state in your React components. Then you need to know React router, how to be able to route your application with navigation. And there's a lot of stuff, right? But this is just the big ones. Then you need to know how to use Context API to manage state in a way where you don't have to do constant prop drilling. And if it gets too complex and Context API is not enough, you should be familiar with Redux. That's kind of like the big overview of what you need to be comfortable with. You don't have to be a master, but comfortable with to call yourself a React developer. And I know it's a lot. Outside of that, you need to be familiar with all the JavaScript that you use in React, like all the array methods from filter, find, map, reduce. You need to know those. You need to be comfortable working with objects and JSON data. You also need to be comfortable and familiar how to make a synchronous request to an API using either async await, which is the newer way of doing it, or using promises and .then statements, which is the older way, but even though async await is basically the same thing, just newer. But you need to be able to make calls to an API to get the data. And that, in general, is basically what you need to know. And that's a lot of stuff. And let me see if I can find this other article. It's really good. It's by this guy, C.S. Dodd or something. C.C. Dodd. Todd. I don't know. Dodd. Prerequisites. React. He did a pretty good outline. See, like, if I could find it. Oh, man. You guys, under pressure. Maybe it's called JavaScript. Yeah, I should have prepared more. You guys asking a lot of great questions. Let me, like, it'll be worth it. Give me a moment, try to find it. because I want to go over through, because it talks about, that's a great article, by the way, of how much JavaScript you should be familiar with to be able to, be kind of up and running and call yourself a React developer. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody, but this is the thing with becoming a web developer, learning things, is that there's a lot to learn. And like, I don't want to sugarcoat things, because it will do you a disservice trying to get hired. It's not going to help anybody if I kind of set your expectations like it's easy, and then when you try to get a job, you're like, oh, Paul was a liar. He didn't tell me the truth. And so this is very important for you guys to kind of, like for me at least, to be open with you guys, and I wish that people were open with me. So here's the article I found. It's called JavaScript to Know for React. It's by Kenzie Dodds, who's like a JavaScript master. So here we go. Let's take a look at it. And guys, smash that like button if you haven't. Ask more questions, and after that, like in the comments. And if you guys don't ask questions, I'll just keep moving forward, because I want to talk about where do algorithms and data structure knowledge fits in, why you should be using things like, codewars, or using things like Hackerrank. And I'll talk about Hackerrank. I'm not happy with this idea, but I'm going to tell you why it's important in a second. But here's the thing. So this article, you could check it out, JavaScript to Know for React. And here I'll see if I could copy it and put it in the chat for you guys, see if it works, so you guys could also have it for your reference, because I think this is important. But here's the article, and we'll breeze through it first. So you need to know basic concept in JavaScript, like template literals. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are. We're just going to breeze through it. You need to know shorthand property names when working with objects, because all this stuff is used in React like every day. You need to know arrow functions and their benefits in React. This is a great article, by the way. You guys save it for future notes. You need to know the structuring, what that is when working with objects. You need to know how to set default parameters and functions. Very important. You need to know this idea of rest and spread. It's basically how you could use that to get the rest of an object that you're passing. Like give some examples here and what it does. Also, how if you destruct an object and you take out the first value, when you use the rest here, it's going to give the remainder of that object and spread it. So it's not going to include the first one. You also need to be comfortable with the ES modules, basically using imports and importing code and importing functions and how that works in the React application. You need to know what obviously if statements and else statements are, but very common to make kind of shorthand of that is to use ternary operators. So if this happens to be true, do bottle has soda, otherwise the bottle may not have soda. And it's basically like if or else. It's like the same thing like they're doing here. It's just written in shorthand. So you have to be familiar with that as well. All the array methods, you need to be comfortable with them. And the one that gives me the most issues is reduce, and it's something that I finally got. Thank God. But you need to know find, sum, every, include, map, filter, and reduce. These are all array methods that if you are not comfortable with them, you're going to have a very difficult time working with React. So that's super important to know and to have. Nullish coalition operators. This I didn't know until I read this article a few days ago. But it's basically this notation here. So I have to do more research. See, you learn something new every day. This is something that now it's nice to have. Before you had to do things a little bit different. Like check the data like so. But with the collision operator, it's just much nicer. So I got to look into it more and learn about it, but it just adds some stuff. You need to know optional chaining. This is something was new to me too. So the last two I'm not familiar with until I read this article, but this is very useful. So the last two, they're not super important. You could work as a React developer if you know. But this, you also have to know. Promises and async await. You cannot do JavaScript. You cannot do React, especially when you're working with APIs and data, if you don't understand promises and you don't know async await. So definitely something you need to know and understand how to do it. And again, you don't have to be a master, but you have to work with that stuff. And he did a great job with this article to kind of showcase everything you guys have to know to go everything you need to know in terms of JavaScript to get started with React. So I hope that was helpful, and let me know. Let's jump into the comments here. Hey, what's up, Mind Over Matter? Great to see you. Tony, you're welcome. Do we have a Discord or Slack channel link? We do have the Discord channel, and again, go to codingafter30@gmail.com to sign up. Let me write the and I'm in the process of building out the Discord channel. So basically, you know, I'm trying to little by little get it set up. Moving all the people from Slack there. So that's where you start. Okay, and all right, guys, so like continue our conversation. And again, listen, smash the like button. Let me know how you guys feeling. I can't stress this enough. This channel would not exist if I didn't have you guys as viewers. If you guys didn't come here and been such a awesome part of this community, I would not exist. So this is not just about me talking to a microphone, to a camera. It's me answering your questions and having a discussion with you. So don't be shy in the comments. Throw questions up, whatever it is, whatever you want. It's super important because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the things that you want and not just the things that I planned. So before jumping into the topic at hand, let me answer this last question and then I'll save all the other ones for later. What will you do at a job like your first 6 months as a junior React developer? So my first company I got hired was very small, and it was a really terrible experience in terms that they literally just threw me into the deep end and they didn't really give me any guidance. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, and they would just tell me to build stuff without really doing like any hand-holding whatsoever. And that's not a typical experience in most companies. In most companies, you will have clearly defined roles. So this new contract role that I started, basically my job is to create new features for the application. It starts from me getting a design from a designer which shows the basic layout. So the first step I'm responsible for is being able to recreate whatever that aspect of that UI using React and basically create that view, which just shows the content and has dummy data, but it really doesn't have any functionality. So that's step one. Take the mockup and translate it into React view. Second step, I will be presented with a mockup data, which is data that you'll be getting from an API or the database or whatever. And now I have to make the UI that I created be able to display that data dynamically from that mock data, which is going to be in a JSON format. So then I go back and then I will add basic functionality like, you know, loop through this array of these items and render it in the UI. Or it could be something simple like, okay, these members are active. If the member is active, make sure it shows active. And if they're not active, make sure it says offline or whatever it is. So the second step is working with mockup data and make sure that UI works in terms of the functionality. So you're going to make, you know, different events happen dynamically based on the data that you get or whatever functionality you need to do. And then step three would be, okay, your UI works with the mockup data, but the data comes from an API. How do you get it? If you're working with GraphQL, then I would have to write the GraphQL queries using Apollo on the front end to get those queries to populate that data into state, which will render the application. If you're working with regular API, like REST API, you would use either XUse or Fetch to do the same thing. And that's basically what I do. And then another part of it is testing all of that, making sure that works. As a junior developer, a lot of times you're doing what is called manual testing. So you're not writing automated testing. That's something you're going to work towards, but you're manually testing the application after you finish the work that you need to do, you fire the application, you click on stuff, and you make sure that nothing blatantly breaks. So that's basically what you do as a junior developer. At least that has been my experience. And as it seems like it's a lot, and that article that I showed you, if you understand that aspect of JavaScript and you're familiar with the other stuff about React that I talked about, all the things that I just described are within your ability to do. Like obviously there might be some complex things that you'll have some higher level developers help you, but in basic terms, that's what you need to do. So I hope that answers your question. And it does sound like it's a lot of work, and it is. Thanks for all you're doing. It really motivates me to continue and not lose focus. Yeah, definitely continue. Don't lose focus. I've been trying to do this and become a developer forever. And the only reason that I'm sitting here in front of you is because I haven't quit. And I started like my YouTube channel started long time ago. And but I started trying to learn so long ago. And there's so many different obstacles I had from quitting. And again, it's not quitting if you get back up on your feet and start. And because of not being serious about it, not putting all the effort, it took me forever to learn, But I know a lot of you guys, if you stay focused, you could get there in a year to 2 years for sure. And some people say they got it in 6 months. That wasn't my case. It took me 5 years to get to where I am, finally get a job. I'm hoping that it's not going to take you that long. I hope you're more motivated than I am, more disciplined than I am, and you're doing what's necessary, and you're staying focused in terms of getting to do stuff. So that's kind of hey, Fahad, that's what I mentioned when I talk about look up all the different businesses in your area as a beginner, right? If you have a source of them, because when you say beginner to me, I'm thinking you know how to make basic HTML and CSS websites with JavaScript, or even using WordPress for clients or what have you. No one's going to come to you. And that's why in a previous example in the stream, when I mentioned, go and check out all the local dentists in your dentist offices in your area, local businesses in your area, see who don't have a website and prepare a presentation and actually go to them like you're a salesperson to sell your services. That's going to be the best way to do it. Here's why. Because if you don't do that actively, no one else is going to come to you and hire you, because you are a beginner. Nobody knows who you are. You don't have a reputation. So no one's going to come to you for a job offer and say, here, build this for me. And that's the unfortunate truth. So you're going to have to be proactive. You're going to have to get going and kind of do that. And if you want to build experience where you don't care about your reputation, just go Upwork, do a bunch of projects. Don't care about the money, care about the experience. But ultimately, you're going to get paid. What I'm doing right now, I'll give you a quick example. Right now, my hourly wage is pretty good. At Upwork, if I were to offer the same service, my rate would be $15 an hour. So that's why I don't do Upwork. Instead, I try to find clients on my own, and I use it exactly the approach I just described for you, and that's how you're going to be able to get higher income. But when you're starting out and you're a beginner, nobody knows about, doing free work is super important to do. So, that's you're going to have to, what I call kind of pay the crap tax, where you're going to have to do a lot of either cheap labor work or free work or whatever to build your opportunities, to build experience. There's no free way around. My first job that I got as a developer was working for free as an intern, building HTML, CSS website, and then converting them to a WordPress theme. I'm very good in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript only. What types of jobs to find with these? So exactly what I said to you is building these local business websites. So if you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, that's enough for you to be able to go to a website like ThemeForest, find some beautiful themes that you don't even build from scratch. And so your job is just find clients for whom you could set up those type of websites, like dentists, coffee shops. They don't need anything complex. So all those websites, they just need a website online that people could find to learn more about their business. And that's exactly what you could do with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And that's exactly where I would go. And so I actually started building websites and doing the strategy that I told you, finding local businesses. I didn't make anything from scratch. I would use WordPress and I would customize
WordPress themes that I bought from a site like ThemeForest with custom HTML and CSS, which is pretty easy to do. But when you're starting out, playing a role as a salesperson, if you want to do contract work, is the only way to do it. And if you want to get a job with the skills that you have, don't look for developer jobs strictly for developers, but contact a bunch of marketing agencies that build WordPress sites, where they just need someone to make minor changes to their WordPress sites, because a lot of them do exactly what I said, is they buy pre-existing themes, they customize them, and they sell them. So that could be your start with when you don't have a lot of experience as a developer, and that's what I did, and that's what I would recommend for you. So moving on, guys, and thanks again for watching. It's like super important. So I want to talk about this idea, like, so when do you start? I'll go like, okay, so I said I was wrong in terms of learning algorithm and data structures, and I'm not going to say I was wrong completely. Because at the end of the day, if an interviewee tells you you need to be able to solve this algorithm problem, you have to do it, right? You have to go on do what they ask you. You can't complain, and that's the fact. So if you don't prepare for that, you're going to be surprised when you go to those interviews where they're asking you to do that. So data structures, algorithms, they are important. By the way, with that being said, there's plenty of other jobs where they won't ask you to do that. Instead, they'll ask you to build like a practical example. And I've seen both. And I prefer the interviews where you build a practical example, and it's just easier because it's something that's more relatable to the job. But remember, if you don't practice algorithms and data structures and doing those challenges on a whiteboard, you're not going to do well on those interviews, and you're just not going to get that job. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to get any job, because there's plenty of other companies that just do practical examinations, and based on your portfolio or your portfolio with the projects you build, if you talk about and showcase them, will be enough. So I'm not saying that it's like make it or break it, but here's the thing. There's companies that get so many underqualified people try to get hired there that they're going to websites like Hackerrank, putting up tests there and using that website to test their employees before giving them a chance for an interview process. And that's kind of crazy. That's kind of, not all companies do it. I don't want to scare you guys away, but the point is there's going to be adaptation. A lot of people that want to make sure that they pre-screen their applicants by having them go and do these problems on sites like Hackerrank. Now, Hackerrank is not for beginners, or if you are a beginner starting out, it's pretty daunting, but it is important to, if you were to start practicing stuff, is do it on Hackerrank. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you're a beginner, you 100% have to go on codewars, and you need to solve problems programmatically. And let me show you here the website. So the reason why, by the way, why you need to practice these algorithmic data structures, or at least solving problems, because you don't get paid to code. You get paid for being able to figure out a solution. And what these problems, these whiteboarding problems show, it's not so much that you understand the algorithms or data structures. It shows how you think about solving a problem. It shows how you break a problem into structured steps, and you go step by step, and you're able to articulate your thought process. So even if you don't solve the issue on a whiteboard, just the fact that they saw how you had a very systematic approach of thinking, they might still hire you based on everything else, like you're having a good portfolio and do the other stuff, right? It's more to test your thinking ability to walk through a problem to get a solution. Nobody wants a developer that will be like, how do you solve this? How do you solve this? No, this is a skill you need to develop of being able to solve those problems. The company that I work at now, where they don't do any hand holding, like you need to figure it out on your own. And that's basically what it tests. It tests your ability to figure things out and having a structured approach to answering questions. So, but let's take a look here. So if you're a beginner and starting out, one of the best places to go is codewars. And you start with Kata 8. I need to spend more time here. But they have basically different katas, and they're of different levels. 8 is the simplest, 7 is the next up, and so far until you get to number 1, which is the hardest and take forever to solve. And so if you're beginner, start with 8 and 7s. You should be, and find a language that you're using. Like if you're using JavaScript, and what they do is they give you a problem, right? And they'll tell you, okay, create a function that takes 2 positive integers and forms a string as an output and outputs the sum also as a string. So, that's what you want to do. And then you hit train. And this is like a super simple solution. It gives you a function. And basically, you could test if the code you wrote worked. Obviously, nothing works because I didn't write anything. And then you basically start solving these challenges grammatically, and it's basically saying create a function that takes 2 positive integers in the form of a string as an input and outputs the sum of all the strings. And so you work on solving it, and this will help you to kind of get used to starting from easy and working to more complex. Let's look at like a 6 kata here. Chess font, chessboard, cell colors, count characters in your string. Let's see what this one is. And you could kind of see the difficulty, but start practicing these. And again, maybe say 45 minutes a day I will dedicate to practicing these things. You don't have to devote too much time for this, because ultimately, if you don't have a portfolio, if you don't have a projects built to showcase, you don't have a resume to showcase to your potential employees, this is irrelevant because you're not going to get hired. But then once you have all that in place and you're looking to get hired, start practicing these. So, okay, the main idea is to count all the occurrences, characters in the string. If you have a string like ABA, then the result should be A. There's 2 A's and there's 1 B. So basically, add up all the strings, and then you hit train, and then you write your code and you work on like what it is that you have to do to get it done. So these are good problems to practice. Now, coming back to this idea of companies starting to use sites like Hackerrank to basically pre-scan their potential hires. So you go to hackerrank.com, sign up, and let me sign out for a second. Here's an interesting thing about, it's not letting me sign out. Oh, log in, so I'm signed out. Here, go to Hackerrank here. So here's the concept of Hackerrank. They have a section for companies and they have a section for developers. And for companies, what this is designed to do is to create tests which help to identify skills beyond resumes. It saves them time in hiring because they could just give you a Hackerrank test, and based on how you do, they could say you're ready to come in for an interview or not. And that allows companies as well to create a consistent experience. So this is what I'm saying, using something like Hackerrank is going to in the future becomes more important, because this is what companies are going to use to pre-screen their employees. And so this offers a service for companies to be able to make a test and then give you that test before even interviewing you. And if you don't do well on the test, you're not going to pass. And what is cool about Hackerrank, let me log back in as a developer. Use GitHub. Is that they have a certification section, and they're still working on this, so they don't have all the things. They had React Basics, which I took and I passed. Hopefully, I was like, man, thank God I passed, because that would suck if I would fail out of like React Basics. And I'm waiting for them to give like React Intermediate. But you should, if you're looking to get a React job, take the React Basic test. Take a JavaScript Basic at least. JavaScript Basic. Take their CSS course and get these certificates. Maybe they mean nothing for the employees at this time. But for you, at least you know that you did some sort of structured exam to kind of test to see where you are in terms of your skill. And complete JavaScript Intermediate. So am I going to put this in my resume? No. But it's good for me to know the fact that I'm at least have some sort of competency in what I'm doing. And the other thing I would recommend for those of you who are starting the interview process is go through their interview preparation. So they have warm-up challenges, then they talk about arrays, they talk about dictionaries, sorting, string manipulation, bunch of algorithms. And I'm not saying that you have to do all of it, but this will kind of help you to start thinking through how to solve problems. Now, one of the reasons I don't like Hackerrank for some of these problems is because they start to become math heavy. So you will have to look up formulas to understand, to be able to solve kind of certain things. But what I would say, at least doing some of the challenges to get you into a mode of kind of having a time, like having a process of, there's no time limit on these, on the certificate there's a time limit, but on these, get through a process of kind of working through challenges. So I just recently started doing this. So this is, let's see, if I go to my complete, you could see that, let's see here, not complete, complete, where's the practice? There's a section somewhere that shows submissions. Yeah, so I only did my first one. It gives you a score, and the higher the problems are, the higher the score is. So I did this like a day ago. Basically, it's sales match. You need to, there's a large pile of socks that must be paired by color. Given an array of integers representing the color of each sock, determine how many pairs totals of matching colors you're going to have. So you get an array of numbers. So basically they're asking to check how many pairs of ones, how many pairs of twos, are there pairs of threes, and they're asking you to write an algorithm that basically will return total number of pairs that are found in that list. So basically you had to write an algorithm that solves that. And yes, this sucks. Yes, this is hard, and I don't want to do this. But at the same time, based on what my friend said, some of these companies starting to use, websites like Hackerrank to pre-screen employees, the fact that now that you're able to get used to solving these problems are going to give you a one-up. So to say this, basically, there's so much stuff to do, and you have to start somewhere. And so algorithms, data structures will become important, but not super important that you're not going to be able to get a job if you don't know them. Like, I got hired before really understanding this stuff. It's just companies that require you to know this stuff will not hire you. But there's plenty of companies where give you practical tests and ask you to build something within like an hour, 2 hours, or even give you a take-home exam to do. You'll be able to get a job. But it all starts, number one, having a portfolio. Number two, having 3 to 5 projects that are really awesome that you could put in your portfolio. Number three, having a resume and having a LinkedIn account. And when you have that, then you move on to learning and practicing how to interview. And that's when you could start focusing on sites like Hackerrank and doing these algorithmic or whiteboarding questions. But as a beginner, you should have some fun at codewars. Codewars is a very easy way for you to practice these concepts of solving problems, kind of similar to whiteboarding, with a non-stress kind of fun way of doing it, and it'll just help you become a better developer, and that's why I recommend it. So let's take a look at the comments here. So this is in terms of like, if you work for a small business, they don't want to pay. Yeah, that's going to happen. That's an issue of like working. So you would usually do this. You would say you have to pay half upfront or a quarter upfront, and then when the project is finished, you pay the rest. So if they don't pay you when you finish, like, and what you do is like, you don't give them the final project until they make the payment. The stuff that I was talking about, like if you find a business owner and you give them a website, you're not giving them a completed website project. You're giving them a mock-up of the thing that you could do. Like, they can't use it. They just see like, oh, this is what you're going to do if they decide to hire you. And if they decide to hire you, you could say, look, I take a third of the payment up front, and then I build a website, and then once the website is completed, you pay me the rest, and I give you the website. And then if you want any revisions, I have an hourly retaining fee, and that's what I could do. So that's how I could handle it that way. So for WordPress right now, like, I only do it like, not, if you're going to work like kind of as a kind of freelancer and you're going to find your own clients, I would use for WordPress. I would not even learn how to build the themes from scratch. I would use a website like ThemeForest. I would just buy themes to set up for my clients, and I would just use HTML and CSS to customize those sites. There's no reason for you to build themes from scratch for WordPress, and that's a good way. I know a lot of people that make money doing this way. The only thing with that is that you need to be a freelancer, and which means that you have to be good at sales, you have to be good at finding clients. And there's a great, actually, if you go on YouTube, let me share this with you guys here. Let me find the link. If any one of you guys looking to kind of see if freelancing gig is for you, there's a great course on YouTube. It's 3 hours. And what it's going to do, it's going to kind of show you if freelancing is something you want to do. I talked about in my other streams how freelancing is way harder than getting a job. To get a job, you need to build a portfolio, you need to do all this stuff, yes, but freelancing is even harder. So a freelancing course. Smash that like button, guys, if you enjoy what we've been doing so far, or ask some questions. Listen, this is not just about me like talking to the camera and giving you my opinion. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to involve you guys in the community because that's super important for me, guys, because I want to make sure that I'm offering you the best possible question. This guy is amazing. Ads, great. I'm going to just, the only reason I wanted to show you this, it's the ultimate freelancing guide, and it is ultimate because he gives a very good exhaustive thing of what you need to do to be able to work as a freelancer. I'll post it here for you guys. Check it out. It's super, super duper important, and it will kind of showcase that, number one, freelancing is way harder than working. And then I'm not saying that you shouldn't strive for it, but notice I've done some freelancing and I went back to working and getting a job. And so, because it's tough, but watch that video if you're serious about freelancing. And there's plenty of courses on Udemy or online. If you want to get into freelancing, you could start with just basic HTML and CSS and JavaScript knowledge and leveraging the power of things like Squarespace or using WordPress, or now the coolest thing is coming out is using Webflow to build websites, very basic websites that you could like offer for small businesses, but that's the market that they fit in. But WordPress is great too. Like, you could build a career doing that. But if you want to build more concrete applications, will work with, which have authentication, where they manage databases of users, stuff like that. For that, you need to continue at this rabbit hole of becoming a full stack developer, which takes more time. But what I'm saying, freelancing with WordPress is a legitimate thing, and you guys could do. So you could check it out, that video, and I'm just blabbing around and talking. So let's look at the comments here. Hey, what's up, Jordan? Good to see you. If you want to focus, yeah, great advice. You might avoid like WordPress instead of web development basic. That's 100% true. And again, that depends on the fact that do you want to be a web developer and get hired, or do you want to try to start your own freelancing business? And if you want to start your own freelancing business, the fastest way to go there is with WordPress. But that's not going to help you in getting a job as a developer. That's exactly clear what Jordan's saying. I'm just saying, if you want to freelance and want to have a roadmap, go that route. And I gave up that route. That's the route I was on, but I gave up that route, and now I do like full stack development and do nothing with WordPress because I don't want to be a freelancer. I want to have a job because freelancing is really hard. And if you watch the video I recommend in the comments, you guys are going to see that that's the fact. So with everything that we talked about today, any questions about anything? I talked about a resume. I talked about rewriting the resume. So quick review is that, number one, when you're starting out, don't try to learn everything. If you're going to do React and JavaScript, just focus on that. If you're going to stick with WordPress, just do WordPress. If you're going to do ASP.NET, just stick with that. Number one, learn the basics of the language and get good enough to be able to build 3 to 5 projects to put in your portfolio. Number two, don't wait to build a portfolio site and use a theme, something that's going to basically allow you to create a home for your portfolio something that looks really good. You know what I'm saying? Like, this looks really good. It's a free template I found in the process of finishing the stuff here. But you see it, like, have a good portfolio website that will be a home for your portfolio projects. And when you have portfolio projects, stick them in here. But this way you have a professional looking, presentable landing page that looks amazing. Number 2, make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile that's consistent with your portfolio site. Make sure that if you have GitHub, it's consistent with what you're doing. Make sure that you are committing code to GitHub that shows that you are practicing development, you're doing the things that you need to do. Make sure that you don't have a bad resume like this one. This resume is terrible. This got me ghosted by recruiters 100% of the time. Your resume should look nice. This is a newer version that I wrote. I will talk more in details about resumes like I did before. But for now, that's what we're going to talk about this live stream. Looks way better, looks amazing, looks awesome. And this took me a long time to learn how to write resumes like this. Now, if you don't have experience, you don't have a job, you need to rewrite your resume the same way still, but instead of job experience, right, put projects that you're building and use that bullet point, implemented Redux for global state in a React application. Use router to solve my routing and navigation problem. But basically, write it in that same bullet point response. Once you have your resume, once you have your portfolio with 5 projects, once you have all that stuff, and before you have that, use sites like use sites like codewars to practice JavaScript solving problems. Don't go too crazy about it. Do like half an hour every day or 45 minutes every other day. But once you start interviewing, using sites like Hackerrank to do some of their problem-solving problems, at least going through their interview prep kit, which is amazing. A lot of stuff, and practicing solving these whiteboard problems, being able to answer in an interview 30 common React interview questions. Practicing interviewing becomes really important, but it only becomes important if you already have an amazing portfolio with 3 to 5 amazing projects that work. Nothing is broken on those. I can't stress that enough. You cannot put broken projects into your portfolio. People are going to leave faster than my ex-wife in my last relationship. And that is the fact. So what you need to do is do all those things, make sure that your portfolio works. And once you're getting ready for interviewing, that's when you're focused on, okay, am I clean shaven? Does my haircut look good? Am I able to speak about the things that they're going to ask me well? Like, I should be able to talk about myself. I should be able to talk about what I've done in my projects. I should be able to showcase my projects. I should be able to feel comfortable talking about development in an interview. Then practice some basic of solving whiteboarding questions, even though maybe you don't like it. I don't like it either, but it's going to help you prepare better. And I'm not saying that will make it or break it, because there's plenty of jobs that will ask you just to do a practical portion of building something in React or the technology that you're learning, and go through the applying process. And that's a lot. I get it. And it's terrible that it's a lot. But hey, web development, becoming a software engineer, you might start making low income. But in the span of 3 to 5 years, you could make 6 figures. You could make over $100,000. And to earn $100,000, it's not easy. You need to have some level of competency to command that type of income. Because if it just took the basics to get paid $100,000, everybody would be a goddamn web developer. But that's not the truth. That's not the case. And that's why your patience, your suffering in the beginning, your perseverance will pay. My first year of income was terrible. I might as well work at a gas station at this point because I had no experience. My second job was better. My third position is even better. And then I know that a year from now, getting closer to 90,000, 100,000 is going to be within my reach. So keep up the good work. Keep working. Keep putting in your effort. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm never going to tell you that it's easy because it hasn't been for me. But the light is at the end of the tunnel if you don't quit. And with that, let's just do final questions, final chats. Let's do rapid 10 minutes of ask me anything about anything, and we'll go from there. So let's see here. Let's see. Victor, mix WordPress to save time and start creating an app. Yeah, you could do that too. Like, I mean, there's so many different approaches. The one thing that I would say not to do is, if you're going to do WordPress, commit to WordPress until you're making money. If you're going to do React, commit to React until you start making money. Do not try to learn two different paths at once. And that's the mistake I made, and that's why it took me forever to get hired. What you have to do, you have to pick a path, and you have to work that path. So if you pick WordPress, commit to WordPress until you get hired and make money. If you start doing, React with JavaScript, commit to React and JavaScript. Only do that until you get hired. And if you're doing ASP.NET, nothing wrong with that. Amazing technology. I love it. But commit to that until you get hired. Like, I started learning ASP.NET after I got a job as a React developer. If someone's learning ASP.NET and they'll tell me, should I learn React? I'll be like, no. Get a job as an ASP.NET developer first. That's what you need to do. You need to find a straight line to the money. And that's what I'm going to tell you. And this is what we got to do. Is there exist CSS battles in I don't know if I don't think there's in codewars, but I'm sure there's other websites where you could test your CSS knowledge. Honestly, the biggest thing about development is just being really good at JavaScript. So I definitely would say that start with JavaScript challenges first. I'm sure there's other websites that do CSS type of challenges as well and stuff like that. So guys, if you like what we're dropping down here, definitely and show some love. I really appreciate it. If you love the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. More importantly, I do have a lot of cool videos. If you want to support the channel, the best way of doing it is watching my videos and liking them if you like them. And with that being said, guys, let's quickly, right now, if you're watching, throw some questions in the comments, anything about anything, and let's do the last few questions before I go here. Otherwise, I'm going to go. So let's see. It's like, come on, last final questions. The final countdown. All right, we got a question from Jay Fern. Let's do this. Your first job as a React front end or net full stack. So I made a commitment, and this is exactly what I just previously said. Pick a path. You need to I made a commitment because I felt it was easier to do. I don't know if I'm right, but it felt like it was easier to do, is for me to get a job as a front-end React developer, because all I needed to do is learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, and that's it. And I just focused on being able to build React applications, put in my portfolio, and that's how I was able to end the job. Now, I know that ASP.NET is full stack, but the reason why it's easier, you can't learn both at the same time. Let's just be clear about that. You can't learn React and ASP.NET, two different ways of thinking about stuff. You could eventually do React on the front end and use ASP.NET Web API on the back end, but don't do that right now. It would be too hard, and you'll spend years trying to get there. Pick a path, either React and JavaScript, which I felt was easier in my case, or ASP.NET, and do one or the other. I did it with the React way. I still recommend people do it with the React way. But at the same time, I do like ASP.NET. And with that being said, by the way, I'm still going to focus on React first. And I'm learning ASP.NET. I don't care about all of their technologies. I only care about two. I don't care about their MVC. I don't care about the Razor pages, because as a React developer, it doesn't matter to me. But I do care about using ASP.NET to create a backend, because I need a backend for my front-end React application. So I'm not even trying to learn all of ASP.NET. And then if I were to be excited about something else, I would learn Blazor, because Blazor is very similar to the way React works, or maybe Next.js works, because Blazor's rendered on the server. But I'm not going to try to do everything, because you can't do everything. You got to pick a niche, and you got to become really good at it. So start either React or ASP.NET or Python, but don't do all of them. Do one of them until you get paid. And either one of those things, you could get paid really well. So that's what I would recommend. So if you guys don't have any last questions or suggestions, we're going to sign off. So I'm going to give another chance for someone to post the questions, because I love answering your questions. It's really fun. to take this time to say thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate the love that you're giving some guy on the internet. I am some dude just like you guys, started learning to code, and it's been a really tough journey. It's been really hard. And so I appreciate the love, the support that I get from you, the community. You guys, like, I'm like the reflection of the good vibes that you guys present. I really love when you guys come down and chat with me here. It is amazing. So if there's no more final questions, I just want to say thank you so much. And I will see you guys next live stream. So we do this every Saturday, 6 p.m. Central US time. And with that being said, love you all. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the weekend. And I'll see you guys later. And by the way, if you want to join us on Slack, you could go to codingafter30.com, hit the join Slack button, and you guys will be all set to go. So I'll see you guys right after I answer this final question. Is there a way to find out what dev tools a company is using so that you could research them or study them before applying? Yeah, literally they're going to put it in their job description, in their prerequisites. So a lot of times when people are doing these prerequisites, they're going to put the tech they're using. And so you could just see the requirements that they're listing and look into those projects. You could also just Google what tech stack is a particular company using. You could do it like just Google what is Twitter tech stack look like, and that way you could do your research. But that's what I would usually do and recommend, and that's it. But with that being said, thanks for the final question, and let me say to Creating with Code, always appreciate your comments. Love the channel, Paul. Keep it up. No, thank you for joining. Thank you for your love and support, and man, best of all, for all of you guys, thank you so much. Keep on coding, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night and take care. There's like no easy way or cool way of ending a stream. It's always like, oh, where's the button? Anyway, have a good weekend, guys. Yes, I'm still trying to end the stream. This is ridiculous. Still going.